90s, there were 3D video games you could play, but the graphics were pretty limited. And this was like high-end arcade stuff, and it was still pretty limited. The reason it's happening now is because of the smartphone revolution. Now, you can buy a phone for 500 bucks with dual cameras. Some have depth sensing cameras. We're getting machine learning in the hardware, mobile, very powerful GPUs and CPUs. So really, we're just waiting for the technology to catch up. Um, Now, these numbers are from last fall. This has changed. The HTC Vive has gotten cheaper, and the Vive Pro is announced and I think shipping. The Oculus Rift has gotten cheaper, and they have been teasing their next generation one. You can get a PlayStation VR. Um, Windows partnered with a bunch of manufacturers to create what's called Windows Mixed Reality. Despite the term mixed, Windows Mixed Reality is really VR. It's immersive. It does have cameras on it, but the cameras are for tracking. Now, what's interesting is that these things required these big, gigantic things called beacons, which are going to be, you have to like anchor them up, super high in your room to kind of bathe your room in infrared so that the headset can figure out where it is. Well, with the MR sets, they use what's called inside-out tracking. So you don't need to have all this stuff in your room. You just put the headset on, and through optical algorithms, it can figure out where it is. And that also means that the systems are cheaper because they're offloading more to processing, but you can do that with your computer. So they range from like $200 to $500. And since I got one of these, I have stopped using the ones that require the beacons because it was just a pain. Now, the medium end, there's Google Daydream and Gear VR, which are essentially you put a phone into a special device, and it's got a wireless controller, and now you have a VR headset. Or all the way down to Google Cardboard, which is where you stick a phone in a thing. There's no input, just gaze, but it's entry-level VR, essentially for free if you already have a phone. On the AR side, there's the HoloLens, which is still about $4,000, but the Meta 2 has come out. It's about $1,500, and the price is going to keep dropping. Again, there's the kind of standalone phone version where if you already have a phone, you can do a lot of augmented reality stuff purely in software. So Apple released the AR Kit APIs, which they're continuing to improve. Android has AR Core, and the newest iPhone has a depth sensing camera. So that's all the stuff that's shipped now. Um, Things keep getting cheaper and cheaper, and the Vive that people who made the HTC Vive have this thing called the Vive Focus, which runs Android, and so it has a more limited app selection than their desktop one, but it's completely self-contained. You don't need a laptop. You don't need a phone. And this thing runs, I want to say, like $400-ish. And it's 6 degrees of freedom tracking. So it can detect when you move this way, when you move forward and back, as well as all the tilting. So for 400 bucks, that's really impressive. Then there's the Oculus Go, which just shipped in May. And the Oculus Go is only 3 degrees of tracking, meaning it can detect when you move your head and tilt, and the same with the controller, but it can't detect if you move forward or back. However, it's self-contained, and it's only $200. It runs essentially Oculus's own version of Android, and it's got its own app store. You load all the things through the app store over Wi-Fi. And these devices, I think, are really game changers for VR because not only are they cheaper, but they remove so many of the barriers of getting into VR. You just sit down, you put it on your head, and you're in VR. You don't have to get your phone out of your pocket and set it up in this thing and then launch a special app. You don't have to install a whole bunch of software in your expensive gaming PC. You just put it on your head and you're good to go. It's really wonderful. So the price continues to go down and the quality continues to go up. I expect that the Oculus Go, probably they'll have a refresh by Christmas, even if not. This is like Christmas, this is going to be the thing that everyone's going to buy. It's really exciting. Now, in terms of potential uses, a lot of people say VR is just for games and movies, and it's true. A lot of people do use VR, especially things like the Oculus Go, for games and movies. You can play a lot of fun games. You can watch 2D movies, like in a big, feel like you're in surround sound with a big screen TV. You can watch 360 movies, VR movies. It is really good for that. But there's a lot more than just games and movies. There is a complete Mars simulation where you can simulate what it would be like to land on Mars with current technology. There's an amazing 360 um, video. It's like a 20-minute movie created of the White House called The People's House. And it feels like you are in the White House talking to the president. It feels like you get to go to the Situation Room. The people are doing really amazing things. On the AR side, for the Olympics, the New York Times created a special Olympics app, which had a lot of AR stuff in it. That worked really amazing. Like I could basically drop one of the figure skaters into my house. And in fact, you see here the top of the stairs in my house, and you can walk around and look at like how they jump and where the motion is, and all those amazing quads. Snapchat has lenses, both front lens and world lenses now, so you can create these AR environments out there. And there's a lot of really cool 360 video. It's pretty easy to build these days. Here, I'm going to show you a little clip. This is from YouTube. This is some astronauts. Come on. You can do it. All right, we may have to skip the video. Oh, wait, there we go. Now, it's not in 3D because I'm not... oh, wait, no, it does do it right. So, this is some cosmonauts who are about to launch they're going to launch satellites by hand. So you can just look around, see everything they're doing. I think this is where he launches the, there we go. He just threw out a satellite by hand. That is just crazy to me. So there's all sorts of amazing stuff. I think we're just tapping the surface of what can be done with VR and AR. You can imagine like exhibits in museums where you would scan the poster and it would anchor some animated 3D graphics around the thing you're looking at, anchored by the position of the poster. You can get more information about the painters in an art museum, not just little bits of text, but full video. I really want to see a walking tour of Pompeii. I went to Pompeii about 10 years ago, and if you don't know Pompeii, it's an ancient Roman city that was destroyed by a volcano, and they've slowly been excavating it. And they sold these little books with translucent overlays, so you could see, here's a photo of what it looks like today, and then the overlay would show you what it looked like 2,000 years ago. Well, we could do that now with VR, so you could really, or with AR, so you could actually be walking through the ruins of Pompeii and have real architectural diagrams, animations of people walking around their daily life, really see what it was like in Pompeii. So just so many amazing things. Now, the challenge is that hardware is getting better and better, but software is a little bit lagging. It's mostly games and 360 videos, and you need a lot of specialized skills to create this sort of content. So we, of course, suggest you do everything on the web, first because the web is everywhere, and the 3D support on web has gotten pretty good. WebGL, it's hardware accelerated in most places, even on mobile. WebVR 1.0 gives you access to the controllers and the headset poses. And we are part of a working group with Google and Apple and Microsoft to develop common specs for the next generation of this, which is called WebXR. And we have even created a prototype experimental browser called the XR Viewer, which you can get in the iOS App Store, which lets you run these demos. Like here's one where I actually was building giant blocks, Lego blocks, in my living room. Let's see if we can, there we go. So, oh, actually, here's a solar system in my living room. I took this last Christmas, obviously. Here is the blocks. I'm going to just tap to keep adding more blocks. And I can create this virtual giant Lego structure in my living room. So, super fun. So you can start experimenting with this stuff today. It's called the WebXR Viewer. It's in the iOS App Store. Google has a similar one in the Android App Store. Their version of WebXR is slightly different than ours. We're in the process of reconciling the two APIs. So that's coming along well. We also want to make building content easier. So A-Frame is the go-to place for building simple 3D VR scenes. And I'm sure I've talked to you guys about this before. It has components for 3D objects, particles, physics, importing 3D models. Really good stuff. Now, what's changed since I made this slide deck is I've been working on a few workshops, and I discovered this thing called Glitch. So Glitch is really awesome. With Glitch, you can create your own projects. Here's one I created for a recent workshop I did at my local library. So I'm going to edit the project, and you can see that on the side, here's my notes, here's my code. I have an inline code editor, and if I just hit show live, then it will show my creation, and I can go back and immediately do, like, let's change that green thing on my forehead to be blue. Let's see, and then, oh, that was the green one, and then we'll change that one also. We'll change that one to be red. And now it's immediately updated. So Glitch is really amazing combined with A-Frame, because not only can I do all of this stuff in a web-based system, but I can send this link to somebody else. They can view it, and then they can hit this little button here and remix it and create their own copy, which means I can now create all my workshop content here as glitches, and the students can just start from a working system and jump in and start hacking on it and building their own stuff. So to help you out, I did a blog on my Medium blog about my experience teaching WebXR to a bunch of 8-year-olds. And they really enjoyed it. I had to kind of simple things down. The syntax probably was the hardest part. They actually understood 3D geometry pretty well. So I started with this existing Glitch project. Another nice thing about Glitch is that you can create your remix without logging in. This is really important because a lot of younger kids don't have email addresses, or at least they don't have email that they have unrestricted access to. So creating an account is sometimes not always a possibility. So Glitch works wonderfully for that as well. Syntax was still tricky, so we often did things as a group where I would be typing on the projector that they would see. I also handed them all a cheat sheet. So this cheat sheet is basically the very basics of what you need to be productive in A-Frame. It doesn't include everything, but it's a single sheet. If I did it right, it should print front and back on a single piece of paper. And it shows you the syntax. These are some of the common components you'd want to use. Here's how you're going to load assets, images, and audio and video into your scene. The syntax for position and rotation. I often forget that position's in meters and rotation is in degrees, not radians. How to change the color, how to load GLTF models. Now finding 360 images, you can create them yourself with a 360 camera, and I'm working on a workshop about how to do that. The new 360 cameras are wonderful. But here's also some links for how to find 360 images on Flickr, where to find free sounds. I've also created a collection called, oops, right here. That is also the wrong button. Why is that? It's funny, these links are all going to Sketchpad. I just need to change the text of those things. There we go. This is a set of assets I created. These are some equirectangular images which I have scaled down so they are reasonable for mobile devices. They have nice short names. You know that everything in here will work perfectly, and so you can just like click on this link. It's called copy link location. We'll go back to my workshop. Let's change, which one was that? The one called office. I'll just change that to here. And come on, load. Did I get the video? Whoops, there's an extra H. There we go. And that's all it takes to start building 360 experiences. So I created this set of assets. There's some beautiful images that kind of convey what's possible with 360 imagery. And I also prepped a few models so it's easy to drop these in. Again, you just like copy the link and then you add it to your project as a GLTF model resource. You can get more resources, more 3D models on Sketchfab, but there's often a conversion process, which is why I hosted all these guys here. So, what's new with headsets? We went over that. What's new with VR cameras? I'm working on a blog about the 360 cameras, which will ship next week. I think that'll be on the Hatch's blog. What has Mozilla been working on? So if you check out the Mixed Reality blog, blog.mozvr.com, we started doing weekly updates, and we're working on some really cool stuff. The two big projects is first Firefox Reality. So Firefox Reality is a version of the Firefox browser designed specifically for a virtual reality environment. So it can show you 2D web pages in a 3D scene with stuff around you. It can show videos with a nice black background, but it can also show VR content, so truly 3D. It's still a work in progress. This is a little clip of browsing, I guess it's a YouTube video in 3D. We're working on features, so if you're watching video clips, how to switch it into, like, scale it, make it more immersive. If it's a 360 video, wrap it all around you. So we're doing a lot of UI experiments. We wanted to make a browser that isn't just for viewing the 2D web in VR, but actually takes advantage of VR and lets you do new, unique things. So there's a lot of great work on that. We do have daily builds, I believe, but the first public release that we're encouraging people to try it out should be out in a week or two. And we will have an APK available for, I think, the Oculus Go and a couple other headsets. I forget the exact headsets that we're working on. Currently, it does have to be side-loaded, but we will get that into some app stores when we hit the 1.0. Another thing we've been working on is called Hubs. And here we go. Hubs, you can think of it as a virtual reality meeting room. So you can create a new channel or room entirely hosted by Mozilla. So you just log in and choose a new room name, and then you send the link to other people and they can join you. And it's true VR chat. You can hear each other, you can move around the space, and because it's based on the web, there's nothing to install, and it works everywhere. If you are on your desktop, if you are on a phone without a headset, then it still works. If you have a full, VR getup, then it works in full 3D interactive. You can move your hands around. The whole point of the web is that everybody can access it from anywhere with whatever device. You may not have the same experience, but you still have a usable experience. So Hubs is that for VR. And we launched Hubs 1.0 in April, and we're currently working on 2.0, which focuses mostly on customization, so letting you customize your avatars, let you build your own rooms, let you bring maybe like a PDF in, and so you can have a shared presentation where you all talk about your slide deck. You know, there's a ton of really interesting things that people are going to do with hubs. So I'm really excited about that. So I think that is all of the actual news that I have to talk about. Now we have a Etherpad over here, so we can start taking some questions. Let's see. Let's see. Since syntax is tricky for younger kids, what about having pre-typed entity and component values? So in my workshop notes, I'm planning to have a glitch where people can remix and type, and then have basically notes on the GitHub repo where you'll be able to copy and paste stuff in. However, I found that with kids who are like 8, even copying and pasting can be tricky because they don't always paste it into the right exact location. So I'm looking at some visual tools that are semantically the same as A-frame, maybe like the A-frame inspector, but and then hosted on a glitch, and see if we can make something where they can drag the objects around, move them in 3D space, set the properties through a visual tool. So semantically it would be the same, but for younger kids, I think a visual tool would be better. Is there a way to test Firefox Reality without using ADB in Android Studio? Currently, no. Technically, you don't have to have Android Studio to have ADB, but you do have to enter developer mode and use ADB to side load the application. Eventually, it will be in app stores, you know, just like any other app, and signed by Mozilla and stuff, but not currently. Fabian asked, how can I use the custom protocol of the iOS XR viewer that you showcased in your recent business card demo? Yes. Let me, so I kind of tease this thing. Where did I post that? Let me find. I don't know where I put the original video, so it's easier to just go back through my Twitter stuff. Oh, by the way, you should definitely follow me on Twitter. It's all like MR and XR and educational stuff all the time. July, I didn't see. That was in late June, because I did that for a conference I was at. Yeah, there we go. And boom. So what you're seeing here is, first I created some business cards with a QR code. And I'm scanning it just with the regular camera app. The iOS camera app has QR code scanning built in. It takes you to a special mobile page I made. However, if you click on the demo link, it does two things. First of all, it is not using a regular HTTPS protocol. It is calling, I think it was WebXR or something like XRN. It's a custom protocol we created just for testing, so that you can use your regular browser for regular browsing, but then make a link that will force it into the XR viewer. The XR viewer is this experimental browser that we have for iOS. So that's what's loading there. Once that's done, it's loading a particular page that is looking for a specific image. Originally, I was actually going to look for the image of the duck on my business card, but it turns out the way this image detection works, it needed something like a photograph with more feature points. The duck was too simple. So what it's doing is looking for this particular image that I told it. I gave it a copy of that classic blue marble image, and then when it sees it, it just calls me back saying, hey, I found an anchor in 3D space, and then I drop a model in there. And this was just a model of the Earth that I happen to already have. So how does this work? Well, you want to go to MXR, nope, where was that? I think this is under the polyfill. new. It's the, here we go. So if you go to, no, that's the viewer app. Where is the XR viewer? There's all our examples. WebXR, examples, Mozilla. We want, it's this one. Yeah, okay. So if you take a look at image detection here, this is one of our standard demos. And this is in our, okay, it is in the WebXR polyfill repo. The code is a little tricky to follow, so I'm going to be working on a new version. But my colleague Blair created this demo. So we've added some new WebXR APIs for image detection. It's called an image anchor, and it's platform neutral, but is backed by the native platform. So since this is running on iOS, if I call it create image anchor, it's underneath going to be calling some ARKit API. So you give it the image name and the data and the width and height and the, basically this is how big it should be in meters. So it's like 20 centimeters. So you describe the image that it should look for by loading up the image and getting the data. And then it creates this object called, where that goes. It's going to call back with, all right, I really need to document this because it's somewhere it's creating this image detection object. So we get the image data, create the image anchor, and then down here we call activate image detection. Oh, I see. So we're registering it under a name, and then we tell it to activate image detection for that name. And then when it finds something, it's going to call you back with a transform. And using that transform with some annoying math, you can now basically create an anchor in space. And then you can start attaching things to it. So it's still way too tricky to use. So I'm working on an abstraction which will make this a little bit easier. But essentially, I took this code and hacked it up for my specific demo. Let's head back here. Let's see. What are you most excited about in the WebXR specifications? I'm most excited about things like image detection because it's the link between the virtual world and the real world. Currently, we can detect the world around you in terms of planes, like flat surfaces, but which is great if I just want, like here's a thing and I want to put it on a table. But suppose I go to the museum, how does my phone know which exhibit I'm at in the museum? It could use GPS, but GPS is not accurate enough for the things I want, especially indoors. It can tell you you're at the museum, probably maybe which wing, but it's not going to be able to tell, like I'm looking at this exhibit versus this exhibit. So with the image detection, we can now further narrow that down and say you are exactly here and your orientation. So I can then add graphics to enhance something in the real world that actually lines up with something in the virtual world. So like we can really bring them together, and that creates so many interesting, amazing things. And it's not QR codes, it's just images, so it will look pretty. I imagine a lot of these will have like a QR code in the bottom corner to get to the web page, but then just with this web page on the museum's website, I can now have this really cool experience. So that's what I'm most excited about. What is the process to extend to Mozilla's hub scene to make your own presentation in it? That we are actively working on, and you're going to hear from us sometime in the next month with the new release how to actually do this. Who is in charge of A-Frame now? If nobody or no organization specifically is on governance, how do you see the future of this successful framework? So A-Frame, even though we supported it and put resources behind it, it's always been community driven, and that is still the case. We looked at it and decided it's really, it's really the best thing in its space. It certainly has flaws, especially as you get to building more complicated things. But for the space you're in, it works really well for a certain class of applications and experiences. And it's wonderful for learners, and there's a rich community. So our goal is to continue growing that community and to invest in the underpinnings. A-Frame is built on top of Three.js. So we have hired, we've gotten some more resources to improve Three.js, get it running on WebGL2, get it running with the new WebXR APIs, work on performance improvements, fix bugs, support new headsets as they come out. So by improving Three.js, we are improving A-Frame. A-Frame itself, I think, is really going great, and I don't think we're going to see many new features beyond these, these support for new headsets and stuff. I think all of the really cool new stuff is going to come from the community. So our goal is to continue supporting that community and encourage people to build more components. What is my favorite VR to AR vice versa experience? Right now, my favorite VR experience is probably the People's House, that 20-minute video of touring the White House, because it shows the potential of 360 video. There's certainly a lot of fun games, but most of the games could still be done, on a 2D screen. Whereas that 360 view of the White House is totally new. For AR, I'm really excited about these educational opportunities where you can walk around a space and have it enhanced with further information. There is one actually that I do want to build myself. We have a physical model of the solar system here in the town where I live. It's owned by our science museum, and it's a 1 to 1 billion scale. So like there's a sun, and like I think like a few meters away is Mercury, and like 90 meters away is the Earth, and if you want to go all the way up to Neptune, it's like 4 miles away. Like it is to scale, which is really cool. It gives you that sense of just how big the solar system is and how far away it is. So what I want to do is build an augmented reality experience on top of that. So as you go to each planet station, you could not only see the physical model of the planet, but maybe see a zoomed in version with details, or see its moons actually orbiting around it, or pop up text that tells you more information. So that is something that I'm going to try to build this weekend. TensorFlow. TensorFlow is rapidly becoming the de facto reference framework for image detection and more on the web when Mozilla step in, especially since the existing Common Voice machine learning research effort. Yes, so I don't know if we're going to contribute to TensorFlow itself, but we are using it to build other things. And TensorFlow.js obviously is very powerful. What we're focusing on is making WebAssembly better. With WebAssembly, you can take existing C, C++, Rust code, things which are very fast and optimized, and existing code, like anything in OpenCV is going to be using that. In fact, I think we have some demos here. Yeah, so these marker demos are actually using OpenCV, like the desktop C++ version, compiled into WebAssembly running in the browser. So WebAssembly gives us the ability to reuse these amazing tools and do it fast. WebAssembly can run faster than JavaScript because it has certain limitations on it that make it faster to optimize, or easier to optimize. The other thing about WebAssembly that we're working on is the hooks between WebAssembly and JavaScript and the DOM. So hey, it's great that I can do all the computer vision processing, but if it takes 20 milliseconds just to get the image into it, to the WebAssembly side, and then maybe get the image back out, then that's not really helping. So we are actively working on improving the whole WebAssembly experience and making it possible to do computer vision in the browser purely through a WebAssembly library. That way, vision won't be like hard-coded into the spec, where it's like, oh, we only use this one algorithm, and that's the algorithm we're going to use for 20 years. No, it'll just be a part of your web application, but it'll be viable to do in the browser instead of having server-based solutions. So that's really cool. We're going to have a lot of exciting stuff. What type of MR experience do you think attracts more people, gaming or common apps? Currently, probably gaming. Well, there's two things. So there's the people who like they hear about WebR and they want to try their first experience. A game actually probably is not the best thing for them. For someone who's doing their first experience, I recommend something like the Blue, which is one of these underwater experiences where you don't really do anything. You're just there looking and you can see the shining light through the water and a big whale swims up. And it conveys, the potential of immersion. So the Blue, that Mars landing thing, and of course the People's House video are what I usually start people off with. Once they come back and want to do more, games are probably first, just because at least half of everything out there is a game, and some early experiments with VR movies. They tend to be short, like 5 to 10 minutes. I feel like VR movies aren't just movies in VR. It's a new medium, and we don't know how to use it yet. So people are still experimenting. But we're going to get some really cool stuff there. In terms of things more like tools, I think that's going to come about more from augmented reality, where people are going to, it'll start in industrial spaces like construction or airplane repair, something where someone needs information and their hands are busy. Once, I'm assuming Apple will eventually ship like an AR iPhone or something like that, at least according to the rumor mill. I imagine people will start using them for stuff like cooking. My hands are dirty, but I want the cooking instructions, or I'm video chatting with somebody, or things people use their phones for today in a hands-free space. And we're just going to see how this evolves. Don't think that like you're late to the party. Like, this is still such early days. And what we're going to have available in 5 months, much less, what we're going to have available by the end of the year, much less 5 years, is going to be crazy. So, don't worry about being too late. Just experiment, try new things, and share. Mostly what people are doing on Twitter with WebVR is just sharing their experiments or cool things they found. It's really exciting. Last question here was, are there stats about mixed reality uses versus traditional experience that we can show people, just to show where we are? We don't really have stats yet, and that is something that we're trying to fix. It's definitely a problem. I assume we have some statistics about like number of times the A-frame library is loaded from the CDN. We want to get like a central location for this kind of stuff. So all I can tell you right now is it's growing, but it's really early days. If you do like a Google Trends search for things like WebXR, it tends to spike whenever a product comes out. Like, when we announced Hubs, there was a big spike and then it drops down. It's essentially noise currently because we still really are in the experimental stage. The good news is this is not going to be something that just disappears. This is a long-term technology. It's going to be a slow burn. A lot of big companies are investing in it and making good products. A lot of early experiments will fail, but that's how we learn. But this is the next part of the web and the next part of how people interact with computers. So I'm really, really excited. Okay, do we have another way of taking questions, or are all the questions through here? I don't know if there was something else I was supposed to check.
I think all the questions are there. I don't see any others in the Telegram channel. Do you see anything?
No, I don't see anything else. I was going to drop a last call for questions in the Telegram channel. So Josh, Do you have, is Twitter a good way to reach you, or do you have contact info you might want
So
to
the
share?
best way to reach me, yeah, is Twitter or just email josh@josh.earth. And my streams, there we go. This is where I'm doing all of the
That's right.
Josh's Twitch streams. I'm typing this at the top of
Oh, terrific. Thank you.
that. And that, let's see, specific resources. Follow the Hacks blog and the MozVR blog. This one about teaching 8-year-olds is on my Medium blog. We'll put the link right down there. And this, where did the workshop go? This is the glitch that I use for the 3D workshop, or the 360 workshop glitch. Which the really useful part here is you can remix it, and A-Frame by itself doesn't really have a way to remove a scene and replace a new one. Like there isn't a prefab component for that. So I wrote one. So here's this component, which is standard A-Frame kind of stuff. But you can use it by saying you create an entity with the screen component and give it a name. And then any object in here, you can add a toScreen and then the name of the screen that it should go to. And that's all it takes to make these little hotspots that jump around. And then you wrap it all inside screen switch and tell it which screen should be the initial default one. So A-Frame was really easy to extend. You know, I can make this nice wrapped up little component and everything just works beautifully. Okay, let's see, what other questions? Is Linux support for headsets and WebVR on the way? We want it to be. Linux, graphics under Linux has always been tricky, but it is a very important platform. So I would have to talk to our graphics guys to find out what the current support is. Oh, it looks like Fabian said, yes, new hire consultant for that a few days ago, as far as I know. Okay, sweet. So that's good. So it's coming along.
That's great.
Are
Wow.
there any other questions?
I think that sounded like last call to me.
Okay.
Checking the channels. Thank you. Covered a lot of ground. Thank you so much, Josh.
Thank you all for coming. You guys are, in many ways, our feet on the ground. I can create information, but you're the ones who share it and actually teach people day to day. So I love doing these updates with you, and please email me if you're going to do an event and you want, like if you're going to do a workshop and you want some resources, you want like instructions, email me. I'm putting all this stuff together specifically so you guys can run workshops. So let me know. With that, thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good week.
Thank you. You will. Stay in touch. Thanks again. All right, folks, you know
Bye.
where to find us. Be well. Bye-bye.
Bye.